I don't want to be the person making the decisions on what should be public and what shouldn't.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're examining 10 U.S. government scandals, some of which you've never heard about, blown up thanks to brave whistleblowers.
I wish I was a big enough man to say I forgive them, but I swear to God I can't.
Widespread FDA corruption. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration's primary mission should be to protect the public.
Because the suspected product is a vegetable, CDC contacts FDA to determine who produced the contaminated food, so it can be removed from the market to prevent more people from getting sick.
But the 2000s seemed to see the agency running interference for the very industry it's meant to oversee. Take Vioxx.
Vioxx was a super aspirin that was supposed to be groundbreaking in that, unlike other anti-inflammatories, it had fewer digestive side effects.
Despite FDA scientists' warnings about mass heart attacks and strokes, the painkiller stayed on the market for years. One insider called the decision, quote, the worst preventable drug disaster in history.
Some of this the FDA knew, even though it wasn't public, because the FDA had access to non-public data. So if it was obvious, then it wasn't just Merck's mistake, it was the FDA's mistake too.
Those who spoke up didn't fare well.
I strongly believe that this should have been, and largely could have been, avoided, but it wasn't.
FDA whistleblowers who raised red flags, whether about human medicines or even risky veterinary drugs, were often punished. Politics only made things worse. The Bush White House leaned on the FDA to stall Plan B emergency contraception. When mercury was discovered in high-fructose corn syrup, the agency allegedly simply buried the findings. USDA's broken practices. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is meant to fight on the front lines of food safety. But by 2012, decades of deregulation and automation had made that task almost impossible.
When I came to work for the agency actually wanted you to do your job. And today, I'm of the opinion the agency does not want inspectors to do their job.
Inspectors who tried to do their jobs were punished. Veteran Food Safety Inspector Jim Schreier was abruptly reassigned. Why? Apparently because he called out inhumane handling and violations at a Tyson slaughterhouse. Around the same time, Sherry Medina was targeted after flagging dangerous fecal contamination at a poultry plant. Their cases weren't anomalies, but part of a broader pattern. USDA inspectors who raised concerns were ignored, sidelined, or forced out.
What's been consistent is a culture where the meat inspectors themselves aren't heard and they're not listened to, and they're frequently disregarded, and that comes at the peril of the consumer.
Instead of backing its own watchdogs, the agency sided with industry. Consumers must wonder how much tainted meat makes it onto their plates.
What was it like to realize the thing that you wanted to do all your life is something you couldn't ethically countenance?
Like being kicked in the stomach as hard as you could be kicked. Like literally watching every dream you had be shattered.
DoD waste. The Pentagon has always had a reputation for bloated budgets, but in 1968, one man proved just how bad it was.
Ernie Fitzgerald was a sleuth for truth.
A. Ernest Fitzgerald, a cost analyst for the U.S. Air Force, went before Congress and testified that the C-5A transport plane program was running billions over budget. His honesty shocked lawmakers and enraged the Nixon White House. Instead of being rewarded, Fitzgerald was fired, placed on Nixon's infamous enemies list, and smeared as disloyal.
He said, and I quote, this is about Ernie Fitzgerald, quoting Nixon, "Get rid of that SOB," end of quote.
Yet his revelations helped ignite public skepticism about Pentagon spending. For decades, nobody in power has done much to hold defense contractors accountable. From Fitzgerald's testimony forward, the pattern was clear. The Pentagon wastes billions, and the taxpayers get stuck with the bill.
He leaves behind a legacy of truth that ought to encourage every American to stand up for what's right and what is just.
Massive fraud in Iraq reconstruction. Winning hearts and minds in Iraq was supposed to be America's post-invasion mission. Instead, the country dealt with years of sectarian violence. The rebuilding effort, too, saw billions vanish into a black hole of fraud and incompetence.
According to U.S. official estimates, some $125 billion have been set aside for reconstruction work of Iraq. But to date, very little have trickled down to the population.
Former State Department officer Peter Van Buren described handing out reconstruction funds irresponsibly. Projects that were supposed to build schools, clinics, and water systems ended up half-finished, abandoned, or outright lies.
If I didn't tell you about what I saw in Iraq, who would have told you? Who could have told you?
In one case, a chicken plant meant to employ hundreds had no power or water hookups. In another, millions were spent refurbishing a bombed-out building that was then immediately abandoned. Contractors got rich while Iraqis were left with empty shells. By 2010, audits revealed tens of billions were wasted.
What's the point of war if there is no policy?
Vulnerability at U.S. airports. Before 9/11, most Americans didn't really think much about security when it came to flying.
The Transportation and Security Administration, or TSA, was created 15 years ago this weekend.
The U.S. government did, however, though key officials chose not to act. In the years leading up to 9/11, the FAA secretly used a red team to test security measures. They ran covert tests smuggling weapons and mock explosives through checkpoints. Their success rate was a staggering 90%.
We knew that the security we had then was just a facade.
Their subsequent reports warned that air travel was dangerously exposed. The higher-ups, though, downplayed the findings to avoid delays and costs. After the attacks, Red Team leader Bogdan Jakovic blew the whistle on what was an entirely avoidable calamity.
And the very first week of TSA's existence, they took away all my job duties. And I literally had no work to do for an entire year.
An ongoing nuclear disaster. When nuclear regulators start shouting, you'd better listen.
The waste is already here. It's already sitting on the surface. It's already presenting a risk to us and to all future generations.
In 1986, Casey Rood, a contractor at the Department of Energy's Hanford site in Washington, rang the alarm. Plutonium facilities were outdated. Workers were cutting corners, and tanks of radioactive waste were leaking.
The tanks at Hanford, they said those tanks would last many, many years and they will not leak. And in fact, they were tremendously wrong.
Worse still, sloppy bookkeeping meant some plutonium wasn't fully accounted for. Instead of fixing things, management seems to have buried his warnings and pushed him out. He wasn't the last either. Hanford has a long history of whistleblowers being silenced or fired as the problems never went away.
After having been involved and seeing what we've seen within the workings of the Department of Energy, we find it very questionable whether or not they could build a safe repository no matter where they built it in the United States.
Hanford remains the most contaminated nuclear site in the U.S., with 56 million gallons of waste in deteriorating tanks. Cleanup has dragged on for decades, mirrored in fraud, cost overruns, and mismanagement.
They're not protecting the workers, and they've got a long history of not doing so, of putting money and profits before worker health and safety. Which is ironic because they're all about saying they want to protect health and safety. They're not doing it.
Warrantless wiretaps. In the wake of 9/11, the Bush administration pushed surveillance powers to the breaking point. Starting in 2001, the NSA began wiretapping Americans' phone calls and emails without court approval. The operation was so secret, it was known only to a handful of officials. The public never would have known if not for Justice Department lawyer Thomas Tam.
I learned that we were secretly rendering suspects, people, to states that would likely torture them. I heard my government say that we were not doing that and that we would never do that.
He tipped off the New York Times about the program, sparking one of the biggest national security scandals of the decade. The revelation showed that the government was spying on its own citizens in direct violation of federal law. Tam was investigated, harassed, and saw his career collapse. But his leak exposed how the war on terror blurred the line between safety and civil liberties.
Are you sorry at all that you did what you did?
No. I regret what happened to my family. But to coin a phrase from the last election, I think I put my country first.
Snowden, mass NSA surveillance post 9/11. A decade after the first major NSA scandal, another bombshell dropped. Edward Snowden, love him or hate him, exposed the true scale of America's surveillance state.
So, I just want to get a sense of why did you decide to do what you've done?
So, for me, it all comes down to state power.
In 2013, the former NSA contractor leaked top-secret files revealing that the government wasn't just targeting specific suspects, it was casting a virtual net wide enough to collect data on everyone.
Breaking news this evening is the identity of the man who sent the Obama administration into defend and explain mode this week.
Phone metadata, emails, browsing histories, even the servers of tech giants like Google and Facebook were swept up in bulk. The revelations proved the Patriot Act had been stretched far beyond its limits. The NSA built a dragnet of mass surveillance in the name of counterterrorism.
The truth is that the NSA has never in its history collected more than it does now.
Branded both traitor and hero, Snowden fled into exile. His disclosures made it undeniable. After 9/11, privacy itself was collateral damage.
Why should people care about surveillance?
Because even if you're not doing anything wrong, you're being watched and recorded.
White House messes with climate data. Government science is supposed to be impartial. Under the George W. Bush administration, it was alleged to be anything but. In 2005, climate policy advisor Rick Piltz resigned in protest.
Rather than taking the science as it was given to them and dealing with policy issues, they came in with a predetermined political agenda, which is we're not going to regulate the energy industry.
He blew the whistle on how the White House was literally rewriting federal climate reports. A former oil lobbyist named Philip Cooney, working inside the administration, had been caught making edits.
Congressman, I didn't edit the report. I made recommendations within an established interagency review process, and I believed at the time that I made them that I had a foundation for my comments based in the National Academy of Sciences.
Cooney downplayed the dangers of global warming and grossly exaggerated a lack of scientific consensus. Instead of presenting the science, the government was spinning it. Piltz's revelations exposed just how politicized climate research had become at the highest levels. And if Bush's team tried to hide the truth, the Trump administration dropped the pretense. His EPA simply deleted climate data altogether.
San Francisco pulled a fast one on the White House today. The city just posted this research data on climate change on its own website, sfgov.org. It's the same climate science the Trump administration deleted from the EPA website back in April.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. My Lai Massacre Cover-Up. The My Lai Massacre was one of the darkest chapters in American history. In March 1968, American soldiers slaughtered hundreds of unarmed Vietnamese civilians.
You shoot somebody for the first time, you think about it, you think, you took another human life. But then you think that it's war, and that's the only thing that you could do, and it's either you or them.
Chief Warrant Officer Hugh Thompson Jr. and his helicopter crew intervened, rescuing survivors.
I saved the people because I wouldn't taught to murder and kill. I can't answer for the people who took part in it. I apologize for the ones who did. I just wish we could have helped more people that day.
They had to threaten to fire on their fellow Americans to get them to relent. Rather than confront the atrocity, the Army tried to bury it. Whistleblowers were harassed, reports were suppressed, and only one lieutenant was ever convicted.
He said, quote, "There's not a day that goes by that I don't feel remorse for what happened that day in My Lai."
Even then, he served 3 years of house arrest before receiving a Nixon pardon. The cover-up echoed the lies that dragged America into Vietnam, from false flags to planned coups. Those would later be exposed in the Pentagon papers, thanks to Daniel Ellsberg.
I can no longer cooperate in concealing this information from the American public. I did this clearly at my own jeopardy, and I am prepared to answer to all the consequences of these decisions.
Do you need to blow the whistle on a scandal that is missing from our list? Let us know in the comments below.
There was no accidental killing that day.